Okay, right into it. So newest episode for New Year of Why Men Matter. I'm here with Lea Morrison, who this is a pretty good bio. So I usually do a little a little rundown of who you are, and I feel like this is just scratching a tiny bit. So Lea Morrison, currently a trauma counselor and coach, energetic healer, medical medium, recent graduate with honors. Congratulations. To complete your designation, you are a self-read in a variety of different topics, from spiritual practices like meditation and yoga. You've digested down the Bible, the Quran, Buddhism, and a bunch of other big topics. You survived years of abuse at young age, multiple concussions, and a variety of bad medical encounters that only alternative medicine seemed to fix. You are an alien junkie, a seeker of knowledge, and a 90s music professional at-home dance troupe.
That's true.
And best job in the world of all is that you're a mom. So
well done.
I feel like I really
did your research a little bit.
I feel like I missed a lot because with all these different levels of life, there's a lot that would be filling the gap. So yeah. Thank you for coming on. We've only actually met briefly once before.
I know you made that was a really funny encounter.
You were you were leaving a brewery that I used to work at, and I recognized you, and you were leaving with your kids, and I was just like, "Hey, are you Lea?" And you turn around and you're like, "Hi," and then I just said, "I love what you do. I follow you on Instagram, and I love what you do about trying to coach and teach trauma counseling, and talking about your experiences, but also your experiences as a counselor, and just trying to like share the wealth of knowledge that you have, and blah blah blah." And then you're like, "Okay, yeah, cool, thanks." And then your kids were like, "Whoa, wow, that was awesome."
It involved the entire ride. Oh, you're famous. No, I'm not.
Insta famous.
Yeah.
I think you should ride that wave for as long as you can with your kids.
I was like, remember who you're talking to.
Yeah. Famous mom.
They really don't care.
Yeah. You might as well ride it for as long as you can, because you never know, and rub it in their faces as often as you can.
Do you know who your mom is? No, they don't care.
Yeah. And then officially the second time we're meeting today, and then you're in my house and we're doing a podcast. Yeah. So yeah. But I wanted to talk to people who have experience in a variety of different aspects. And then your expertise is a lot of mental health, trauma counseling, a lot of healing, taking care of others who have not been able to take care of themselves in that way, and having gone through a variety of shit in your life. And I actually, from what I've learned from other people, is that those who go through some of the worst experiences actually end up being some of the best coaches that you could possibly find. So I don't know. Tell me if I missed anything in there.
Oh, that was good. I love how you picked up on the alien junkie. I do love talking about aliens.
We'll get there.
Everything and anything to keep a mind open is how I kind of like to have those conversations.
No, that's the way we should be. It's so easy to be closed-minded, and such a crazy world that we live in right now. So it's yeah. I mean, I listen to Rogan, so and I mean, you want to talk about somebody that's way up there with the devouring the alien junkie knowledge, because there's so much. So yeah, we'll talk about that, because that's kind of just a fun topic, no matter how you look at it. So I have a whole bunch of questions, and I tried to like keep it. I could have probably filled this book with questions, because my brain was just rattling around and being like, okay, well, how far back do we go? Where do we go? But let's start with something super simple. Where are you from, and where'd you grow up?
Coquitlam, British Columbia. So I grew up in the Tri-Cities, and then finished high school in Richmond, and then moved back to Coquitlam. And I lived in Kitsilano and Vancouver and all over the Lower Mainland. I just kind of moved around.
Did you have a favorite place?
I mean, probably Coquitlam because it's where I was born and raised. I just knew the city really, really well. But I loved living down in Kitsilano, being like walking distance to everything. It was the best. Be in your early 20s living in Kits was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Being close to the ocean. And,
the beach was like 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
The liquor store, the grocery store, the work.
Yeah. I grew up in Vancouver Island, and my aunt still lives in, she lives in North Van now. But she used to live downtown, like just a little bit outside of Chinatown. So she was kind of like, she was right in there.
Right there.
Yeah. So lots of good memories. And
yeah,
my dad grew up in Surrey, so he was,
totally different world over in Surrey.
Yeah.
But then in saying that, Kelowna is probably my favorite place. I used to come here on vacation. So the fact that I live here now and live in a home with a view of the Okanagan Lake is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, that's not bad. And you've been here in Kelowna for how long?
4.5 years.
4.5. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've only been here for 5. So yeah. What's your favorite thing to do out here?
Honestly, just sit on my deck with my partner and have a little fire and look at the view. I do. I love it.
Less is more.
Yeah. It's just the quiet moments. You don't get that. I'm living in the Tri-Cities. Everybody was sandwiched in, and there wasn't much privacy.
Yeah.
Or neighborly love. And we live in a cul-de-sac, and all of our neighbors have become like family. It's been really nice.
Oh, wow.
It's a totally different world.
Are you on this side of town or on the other side of the lake? Upper Mission. Yeah. It's a rare thing to have a good connection with your neighbors, especially nowadays.
Yeah. It's been pretty nice. Very different. Cool.
Drop the kids off to the neighbor's house and, Kate, we're going out. It's pretty sweet. And then so lived and grew up in Coquitlam and the madness of the Lower Mainland. And what did you do as a kid? Growing up, we all find ourselves doing a variety of different things. What were some kind of things that you kind of kept busy with as a kid?
Honestly, I have a lot of memory blockages from when I was a kid. So there's a lot of years blocked from trauma, from developmental trauma, and kind of like dissociative amnesia.
Okay.
So I kind of dissociated a lot due to the amount that I was going through. We lived in a co-op, a low income housing unit, and just played with my friends outside as much as I could and rode our bikes. And there wasn't much.
Okay. Yeah. I grew up in a military family, and for the most part, we never really saw I guess the easiest way to equate it would be like an American version of the projects. Does that? Yeah,
I used to call it the hood.
Yeah.
Co-Compton is what we called it. It was, went to my junior high that I went to was the roughest in the district. I didn't know that until I became an adult, and a lot of friends and around the area were really low income and struggling to put food on the table. Food banks and hand-me-downs and that kind of stuff was my raised by a single mom. So it was difficult financially. And then when I was 16, my mom got remarried and moved her and my sister to Victoria. And then I moved in with my dad and stepmom, which did not last very long. And I was out on my own at 17.
Oh, wow. That definitely did not last very long.
No.
And then what did you do being out? Were you done high school at that point?
Yeah, it was within days of graduating high school, which I graduated by the skin of my teeth. But within days, I was out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what did you do with yourself to just kind of like survive and shoved into adulthood?
Basically, I went back to Coquitlam and I was part-time hostessing at Ricky's restaurant, scamming bus drivers to get to work, living off of stolen bacon from the restaurant, and literally just living off of basically peanut butter and Cheerios. And I did that for a while until I landed a position as a receptionist at a law firm, which I promptly got fired from. Was not very good at all. But when I think back to my late teens and early 20s and kind of job hopping and really surviving, I wasn't really taught anything. I was literally in a survival mode every single day of my life.
Yeah.
And so when I was 24, I just said, fuck it. And I threw all my stuff in storage and moved down to Costa Rica with no intentions of ever coming back.
That's a big fuck it.
Yeah, it was kind of like, one of my really good friends lives there. We're still very close. And I moved down and stayed with her and then bummed around the country until I was thousands upon thousands of dollars in debt. Was an American bookie for a while down in Costa Rica,
wow.
making $5 an hour American. And then I came home and tried to figure out my life.
Huh.
Yeah.
What does a bookie do down in Costa Rica?
I took sports bets.
So you'd be on the phone.
I was at a call center in Costa Rica taking American sports bets. Over under.
Wow.
Yeah.
For $5 an hour.
For $5 American an hour. Wow. But this is going back to like 2004.
Hey, back then, $5 an hour. That was big bucks back then.
That was, yeah.
That'd be like $20 an hour today.
Exactly.
Okay, that's quite a bit to do after high school. Because how did you land a job at a law firm?
It was an actual, my boyfriend at the time's aunt worked at the law firm.
Okay.
So I got the job.
Yeah.
But I wasn't very good at it.
I mean,
I had
you're
no
what,
training
18?
Yeah, I was very young, like 19, 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just working at restaurants and basically surviving, and then kind of got put into this position and given a shot, but I wasn't of the emotional maturity or mentality to actually understand the shot that I was being given, because I was still very much in survival mode.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a complex job. Coming from hospitality, and having a little bit of skill there, you're juggling a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're still hostessing when you transitioned, hostessing tends to be very, very simple.
Yeah, I think by the time I started working at the law firm, I was serving.
Okay, because I was going to say, if you were serving, you learned how to juggle a little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit. It's
and then
a fast-paced breakfast restaurant.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
I spent many years in hospitality.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why the place that we bumped into each other. So.
Yeah, there's like the Keg and Ricky's and a pasta restaurant or an Italian restaurant. I don't know. I can't even really remember all of the different.
Are they even there?
Yeah.
White Spot.
Yeah.
Classic BC restaurant.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what made Costa Rica the place that you wanted to go?
Well, my friend lived there.
Okay.
And so it was a place I could go where I wasn't completely alone, but I could get out of the environment that I was in. At the time, I was working at the Center for Disease Control in the STD clinic. And I was really unhappy. I was living in Kitsilano and I loved Kitsilano, but I felt like I was spinning my wheels and battling depression really badly and partying with my friends and spending every dime that I made, even though I wasn't making that much. And just really like, this has got to change. It's got to. And it was a split-second decision of, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And I went.
Huh.
Yeah.
So like having such a quick decision like that, like an impulse, it's like an impulse buy.
Mm-hmm.
Would something like that, being like super impulsive, mm-hmm. like that, would that easily tie into, or would that tie into having all of those different trauma experiences prior to, and then you're just like, I need to get out of here?
Yeah, it was definitely impulsive, but it was also avoidance.
Yeah.
Very, very good at running away. And that's I feel like it's even now I have to resist the urge to run. So when there is a conflict or I'm really unhappy or something is happening, my default response is like a whole ship version of Lea running through the wall. I want to run away. I want to avoid. I don't want to feel. Because that's how I survived, is by disconnecting from my body and not feeling. And so when there was a lot of conflict and turmoil and I just didn't know where to go or what to do with no support, it was, well, wait, there's a family down in Costa Rica I can run to. Yep. There's a friend who loves me. I'm going to go there. And then I just traveled around the country for a little while, which was honestly, it was such a beautiful experience. I love that country so much. and that family so much. But it was still just another, no matter where you run, you're still there.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where I really kind of caught up with myself.
Or it caught up with you.
Yeah, I remember I would walk along the beach, and that's where I truly feel like my intuition started just pouring in because I had a lot of time alone, a lot of time to think. I remember swinging on my hammock, thinking about an ex relationship, and then having an aha moment. Oh, that's why it didn't work. And walking along the beach and having conversations with myself, but perhaps it was my higher self, and really trying to figure out how I felt about certain things. And you don't get that unless you have that time alone and the time for the world to just stop. And so that's where I learned that practice a lot. It was a pivotal moment for me in my life, in my development.
Yeah. One of those big aha moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so, kind of like being on the beach and then having that aha moment, and then it's like a flood of different, I would imagine it'd be a flood of different moments. You get that one, and that's almost like that's the little crack in the dam.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts opening up. Is that kind of what started revealing itself to you?
Not quite then. I mean, when I came home with, I'm going to get my life together. I'm going to figure my shit out. And I started working at the keg. And then I got a job at Children's Hospital. And right around that time, I met my ex-husband within a couple of months of coming home. And I met him, and it was the first relationship I'd had, a romantic relationship I had, where I tried to push him away and he wouldn't leave. And I was like, oh, this is the stability that I came home for. And I do believe that marriage was absolutely meant to be. And we were meant to have our children. He was meant to be a catalyst, but we were never meant to last. Absolutely not. We are so fundamentally different. But at that time, I would adapt to anybody I was around because that's how I survived. So I adapted to him, adapted to his family, tried, and was like, oh, this is stability. I've never had stability. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have children. And then, within moments of us being together, it was trauma after trauma after trauma that led to where I am today.
Yeah. Kind of that trauma bond that is just like, so many people live that.
Yeah.
And they stay in it. Our neighbor, who will probably never listen to this podcast, like when we walk by their door, we can hear them screaming at each other, and it's a daily thing. Really and sad. They are thoroughly bonded in that way, which is unfortunate. And we try to make light of it because we know that it's not good, and there's nothing that we can do or say, and it's not our business. But funny enough, she'll apologize to us. The wife will apologize to us and be like, "Sorry, you probably heard us yelling." And sometimes we have to play dumb and be like, "What are you talking about? We don't hear no yelling." But that's something that a lot of people kind of stay in for years and years, and they never leave. And to be able to recognize that, but then also to be able to have the guts enough to move on and be like, no, this is not right. This isn't for me.
Yeah. I mean, with us, it was, we got pregnant with my oldest, who's turning 18 soon.
Oh, dear God.
But he was born 2.5 months early. So he was 2 pounds when he was born.
Oh, wow.
And that was deeply traumatic for me, who was already struggling with depression throughout the pregnancy. And I'd been battling depression and suicidal ideation with a couple of suicide attempts throughout my teen years. So the depression was nothing new, but it was getting more pronounced as my hormones were starting to fluctuate.
Yeah.
And then having my son almost die was incredibly, deeply traumatic. Within about 4 months postpartum, I was then taken in for emergency surgery and had my right ovary removed. And keep in mind that I had a history of trauma that I wasn't really aware of. There was a lot of cognitive dissonance and dissociative amnesia. And then a history of depression, severe depression and high levels of anxiety that I never really treated. And then I have a baby who almost died. And your hormones, when you have a child, drop. They just crash out. Then I had an ovary removed, which puts you into menopause. Well, temporarily, within 4 months postpartum, me not sleeping, and wanting my baby to survive and watching his heart stop and him stop breathing multiple times.
That's called did they call that a Brody?
No, his name is Brody.
No,
but a bradycardia, yes.
Okay.
Bradycardia. So he would have that multiple times a day. And when they removed my ovary, I had, they called it a psychotic break. I called it a culmination of a lifetime of trauma kind of coming to the surface. I went to a chiropractor a few weeks after my surgery, and I started having psychogenic non-epileptic seizures right there on the table. Was sent to the hospital. They gave me 10 milligrams of Ativan to try and stop my body from shaking because I was conscious, but I couldn't control the movements. And they said, you're having a psychotic break. You need therapy. We're sending you home. There's nothing we can do for you. And from that moment on, I had upwards of 20 seizures a day for almost a year.
Wow.
In the doctor's attempt to help me. Now we're going back 18 years. So it takes 20 years for any type of neuroscientific research to actually get mainstream. So now if that had happened to me, I would be treated very, very differently.
Oh, absolutely.
But back then I was treated horribly. So I went through every testing under the sun, convinced I had a brain tumor. I was convinced because I couldn't control. My depression was out of control. Anxiety was so bad that I didn't even want to leave the house. But any type of side eye or smell or tone of voice or anything that would trigger this response in me, I would start to have an episode.
Yeah.
And the episode would change shape. But if you put my son near me, I would become statue still. Every outward outburst of physical movement would stop. So that was telling us I could control it because my instinct to protect my child was bigger than my instinct to protect myself, which is fascinating in a trauma perspective. After about a year of testing and seeing a third neurologist, I ended up having an episode in front of the neurologist, and he goes, I know what's wrong with you.
Oh.
I was like, please, tell me anything.
Yeah, you and every other doctor, buddy.
Yeah, with a baby in the car seat and me and my husband at the time sitting there, I was like, anything. And he goes, well, you're not going to like the answer. I was like, I'll take anything to understand what's happening to me because we can't figure this out. And at that point, in the attempt to help me, the doctors had put me on 12 different types of medications.
Only 12.
Plus 200 milligrams of OxyContin a day because I was in such significant chronic pain from the amount of movements I was going through. So I was on antidepressants, antipsychotics, antispasmodics, anti-anxieties. Then I was put on medication to combat the side effects of the medication that I was having. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, interstitial cystitis, which is severe blistering ulcers on your bladder. I was having chronic bladder infections. I couldn't eliminate properly. I was in constant pain that they couldn't figure out. And so they just kept plying me with pharmaceuticals until this neurologist was like, I believe you have conversion disorder, which is now called functional neurological disorder. They've changed the classification of it. Back then it was conversion disorder. So I was quite literally converting my emotional stress and trauma into physical symptoms. So anytime I went through any heightened emotional distress whatsoever, and that could be watching a shitty television show, I would have a symptom, a physical outward symptom. So I was like, well, now we know. And he's like, you need to get into some pretty significant therapy. So it was hard to find somebody who was trained or understood the diagnoses, because I was having psychogenic seizures, which is non-organic epileptic seizures. So I did not have epilepsy, but my brain was mimicking epilepsy. And I was converting some symptoms into, one day I would be shaking like I had Parkinson's, and that would happen for 3 solid days. Right. Or I would stutter, or I wouldn't be able to move, or I'd be catatonic, and I would be trapped in my body, but I could not speak. I could not for the life of me make my body do what I wanted it to do. So it was really significant. I got into some psychodynamic psychotherapy, which was amazing. And this doctor refused to speak. So I had to talk for the first time in my life. And he would just ask me questions, and I would be like, what? oh, and there was a few, I was so pissed off that he wouldn't talk that I refused to talk to him for first few sessions. We would just sit in silence. So I was like, you can't make me talk, but I had to do this therapy.
Like Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. And then I was also seeing a psychologist where he would talk and I would just sit there and listen and go, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And then I would take that and go to psychodynamic therapy and be like, well, I just learned this. And then I would put it, the spinning around of that type of therapy actually helped me recognize there was something missing. So I started really paying attention and I started searching for anything that made sense. That's when I started diving into theology. I read the Bible, I read the Quran, I read the works of Taoism, Buddhism, I looked into Judaism. Like you name it, I wanted to devour information because there needed to be an explanation of why I was suffering the way that I was. And that was, I mean, I was even praying to the Save on Foods clerk. Like I was like, anybody hear me?
The grocery gods.
Yeah, anything to help. But within about a year of that therapy, I started getting off of all of the medication. And within a year and a half, if I'm remembering correctly, within about a year and a half, I was completely off all pharmaceuticals.
Oh, wow.
And going from a dependent pharmaceutical addiction, and because I was so scared of being labeled again as an addict, that I was very, like I would wake at 15-minute intervals. I had to take a pill of some sort, even through the night, to be able to manage my pain. So coming off of OxyContin, that level was probably one of the most proud accomplishments I've had.
That's a big one.
It is a big one.
It being such a solid opioid like that. Like it's...
Yeah. With all the antidepressants and antispasmodics and whatever. So to be able to get off all of that and start to talk was amazing. And then following that, once I got off all of the pharmaceuticals and I was in therapy, I started seeing colors and like behind people and around people. And when they would speak, if they were really passionate, I would see color come out of their mouth. And then I started hearing voices and I was like, I'm going fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I can't tell my therapist. I'm gonna be put in a psych hospital. They're gonna put me on schizophrenic medication. Like I honestly was so scared because I felt normal for the first time in my life, but I felt raw. Like I could see and feel everything around me.
You've been numbed for so long.
So long.
Like not just from the medication, but from all the other experiences then that led up to that. And that type of intensity of coming off of the meds. And I mean, I've only ever been on, the strongest I've ever been on is morphine. And I was only on it for a week because I was in the hospital. Double compound fracture in my leg. Like I had to be on it. But that's totally different.
Totally.
You know, low dose because they don't want me to be addicted. And then as soon as I left, I was given like a small thing of I think it was Oxycontins. And my dad only let me take 2 total. And it was half each time. And then that was it. He threw the rest away. Yeah. So I never had a chance to get addicted. I was 17, but to go through that, to have it all ramped up really intense, and then to just have it almost cold turkey.
Oh, there was no cold turkey. It was very, very slow.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There was no, I would have destroyed my body. I was very specific about it. And I knew that if I was going to taper off and get off all of these drugs, because I wanted to understand myself outside of it, that it was going to be difficult. And it was. I was in a lot of pain. But interestingly enough, my pain started to disappear. Yep. When I got off all of that, I no longer had fibromyalgia, which apparently is incurable.
That's magic.
I no longer had interstitial cystitis. My bladder infections and disease just went away. I have a healthy bladder now, which apparently is incurable. So all of these were pharmaceutically induced, right? So I had high anxieties. Well, I also have a lifetime of trauma, which I still at that point hadn't remembered. But climbing out and seeing all of the energies and feeling everybody's emotions, I'd be able to feel somebody's emotion before they open their mouth. And then I would be like, how did I know that? And I felt like I was 3 steps ahead of everybody. Before they would speak, I knew what was going to come about. I knew what was happening a couple months before. And I realized I was living in this weird precognition that didn't make any sense to me. And that is where we can like tap into the information field and stuff and consciousness, and we can dive into all of that. But for me, it was just trying to understand. And I ended up finding my mentor, started doing yoga every single day, just trying to manage my my breath and my stress responses, yoga and moving my body is really the catalyst, I feel, to nervous system regulation for me at the time. And then I met my mentor and I trained under her for years, weekly, to understand energy. But in understanding energy, it was understanding my trauma. Mm-hmm. And it was through a journey that I did, a shamanic journey that I went, a meditative drumming journey that I went into, that I started to remember all of the abuse that I went through.
How did you meet your mentor?
It was somebody who I met at yoga, who introduced me to another person at yoga, who introduced me, who walked me into this store, and this woman was standing behind the counter, and it was such an innate feeling of, I need to know her. I'd never had something overcome me like that. Or I was like, I wanted to crawl onto her lap and snuggle into her and be like, tell me everything's going to be okay.
Kind of like that mother figure somewhere along the way that you'd been craving for so long, and it just hit you almost like sort of a divine moment sort of thing.
It really was. And she ended up becoming my mentor. She is certified in every single spiritual modality you can think of, this woman has done and is certified and teaches. And so she took me under her wing and became an auntie to my kids, and became a really important figure in my development, and taught me that I wasn't crazy, that I had been through a lot, and to understand energy was to understand myself. Emotion is energy in motion. And if we can really understand that in, an academic way, but also in a personal, emotional way, we can find some balance within ourselves. And that is really what ended up, moving me forward into the next stage of my life.
Huh. It's not, I think that's what makes you so special. And a lot of us don't, but a lot of us don't feel like we're special. And so we tell ourselves that we're not special. And then, everybody else is like, well, you're special. But not a lot of people get that type of an adventure through life, and to get to where you were at that point. Yeah. With ups and downs, and, all those different moments of plight that you would hit throughout that adventure, and to hit those milestones, and then to get to where you are right now. It's a crazy story.
Yeah, and it's not even half of it.
No, and yeah, good.
It is a crazy story.
Okay, so you trained with your mentor long time, still in touch with?
Oh yeah, we're still, not as close as we used to be. Kind of, went separate ways, and I don't know if she's even teaching anymore. She has her own life that we all grow and learn. But it was through that a lot of the abuse resurfaced, and I started remembering, which is when I got into a new type of therapy, EMDR, which is incredible for PTSD and complex trauma. And it was through that I realized I had complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD is more of a shock. Yeah. A one-time shock where your body, and if the symptoms last for longer than 3 weeks and you're very alone after that shock, it could turn into a disorder where you're struggling with it longer term. But you can definitely move through it. Yeah. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder is when you have repetitive traumas over and over and over again. Yeah. And you are alone through it all. And when I look back at my history, there was a lot of dissociative amnesia because I was being significantly sexually abused from the time I was about 2 years old onwards. So that is something that I dissociated from. Yeah. So I had no remembrance of it because I left my body and blocked it out to be able to survive. So all of these experiences I was going through was me surviving my everyday life, but having no awareness of the horrors that I went through until my body was safe enough to be able to handle it. And I really feel like this is the innate intelligence of our body, is that when you've done enough work, or when you have healed through some certain emotional layers, then your body's like, okay, now you can remember this. Yeah. And this is what was happening to me. I'd finally become safe and regulated was doing yoga every day. I was, you know, my son was healthy and growing, and I had started to cultivate really healthy relationships. I had a healthy mentor, and then my body's like, and now you can remember.
Yeah.
And so it was deeply re-traumatizing to be able to have all of those flashbacks come through, but it helped me make sense of myself in a way that I didn't know. And I don't think that we need to remember everything. I definitely don't. Thank you. I'm good. I've remembered enough.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I don't need to dive into that, but I can work on how it affects my everyday life. So EMDR therapy was really amazing. And I got super healthy, and my husband and I were ready to have another baby. And then shit hit the fan again.
Why not? Why not? So through all of that, and I mean, you know, you're going through these ups and downs of, you know, having these moments of clarity and kind of learning like, okay, this one I'm figuring it out. And then you get, you know, sometimes when you think that you can't get any lower, somebody throws you a shovel, and, you know, you kind of hit those ups and downs. And then, so through all of that, and I mean, knowing what you know about then and knowing what you know now, is that, like, what is there something about trauma throughout that in your experience? What is something about trauma that people misunderstand?
There is like this spectrum of what trauma is, and I like to soften it to emotional wounding or physical wounding, because what one person's stress load is, something happens, it could be traumatizing for them, where it creates intrusive thoughts and flashbacks and anxiety and feelings of unsafety, and catapults you into depression and not being able to sleep and having your eating habits change, and you lean into coping skills just to try and get through, right? Whether that's gambling or sex or alcohol, but it could also be like, I'm going to dive headfirst into Mercury retrograde and blame it all on that. We will do anything we can to find a way to cope. And those coping skills are survival skills, and they're brilliant until they're hurting us.
Yep.
Right? So coping skills, wonderful. But when you're looking at trauma as a spectrum, nobody can determine or tell you what was traumatizing to you or not. And there's a lot of labeling and finger pointing and, well, it wasn't that bad. Well, depending on what your stress load is, it might have been that bad, right? You compared to somebody else. Yes, there is, you know, so much trauma in the world when we think about war-torn countries and refugees and what people have, you know, that sex slavery and all that kind of stuff. That is like significant trauma. But then if somebody has led a very, very sheltered, healthy, happy life, and something come along and hurts them, that could cause a similar response within the body. There is no comparison. It's where that stress load is leading up to that space. And when you go into these environments for support and help, when you go into hospitals or you're dealing with first responders who have not actually been specifically trained in trauma-informed care or mental health first aid, they can very easily re-traumatize you by one word.
Yeah.
You know, I was in my psychiatrist's office, and the session was really deeply upsetting to me. And I come out and I was not able to drive. This is when I was still symptomatic. And I finally was able to drive around, but I wasn't able to drive because I was shaking and I was having too many jerky, twitchy symptoms at the time. So I went and sat in the waiting room, and the receptionist in this waiting room of a mental health facility started shaming me. And it made my symptoms worse. And then the paramedics were called because I was seizing on the floor, and I was being told I was acting out for attention. Specifically told, stop it right now. You're acting out for attention. Well, what happens then? If I'm acting out for attention, there's a bigger problem here. Either way, there's a problem. And why are we not addressing the problem instead of shaming the person trying to get them to stop moving when they can't help themselves move? And so this is really multiple experiences that way is really what led me to create more of the trauma-informed education and to help people understand the harm that language can cause, and if we're just more aware of it. So I feel that was a long-winded answer to your question.
And long-winded is loud.
But I feel when we can be more aware of the impact that our language has, not in a way where we need to coddle people and be uber sensitive and politically correct. It's about understanding that we do not know what somebody else is going through, and to be harm preventative versus causing the harm.
And it's tough nowadays because we don't know what other people are going through or have gone through. And so, I mean, I have experience in a variety of different industries, but right now being in the trades and being around some old school people who are really rough around the edges and think, you know, you're in a man's job now and, you know, you should be treated accordingly, say the way that they used to be treated 20, 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so the approach is definitely softening, mm-hmm. because there have been such a drop off of people wanting to join the trades because they think it's just a bunch of angry drunks, mm-hmm. Or angry addicted people, mm-hmm. that they're just going to treat me like crap. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've only been in the trades for 5 years, and for the first 4 years, I just get yelled at all the time. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, you yelling at me does not bother me because what you're doing at that level, my dad's got you beat. Mm-hmm. So to me, it wasn't mm-hmm. a big deal. But for younger guys who didn't have that experience in their life, mm-hmm. it ramps up big time for them. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen younger guys on the job sites and they get yelled at, and I just see it just breaks them. Yeah. And it goes right back to like, well, you don't really know what they've gone through or haven't gone through. Mm-hmm. And now they're experiencing this. Mm-hmm. And it's like their brain is just, you know, kind of overloaded. Yeah. And now they're experiencing some measure of trauma, mm-hmm. or just a really crappy experience. And then just people don't know how to handle it.
No. And we're not taught. We're not taught how to handle it. I think we are now. Like, I really feel like my children's generation, especially my younger son who's 11, his generation is moving into a completely different world.
Totally.
But when we look at the generation, for myself, born in 1980, aging myself, born in 1980, being raised in the rape culture of the 90s. And that was a very strong rape culture in the 90s, a very misogynistic culture in the 90s, where there was not a lot of self-respect moving through. But we've moved into this mindful way of living that I think is becoming more popular. The younger generation, I mean, alcohol sales have dropped off a cliff because the younger generation is like, I don't want to drink any longer. They're not leaning into the generational trauma that has brought all of us here, right? They're like, no, I don't want to live that way anymore. And there's always one generation that speaks crappily about the generation after them and the generation after them.
It's going to go on forever.
I really feel like if we can lean into harm prevention and really start to become more self-aware with how we are impacting ourselves, those people in the trades that are yelling constantly and coping with alcohol and, you know, cursing up a storm, which I love a good swear word, is also, that's what they were taught. So they are going to be a product of their environment. Mm-hmm. And so these younger kids coming in, it will be their decision to be like, I'm not going to be that guy. I will take it as long as I can. Yeah. And I will get some support to be able to manage that, but I'm not going to turn into that. And I think that's where we can see, you know, the cultural shift, mm-hmm. that there is a significant cultural shift happening right now where we're not wanting to perpetuate what was done.
Yeah. Yeah. I see it. I see it happening now. Cause I mean, I had the chance to join the trades years and years and years ago. Mm-hmm. And, cause like I'm a plumber now, but I could have gotten in like almost right out of high school. Mm-hmm. And I could have gotten into heavy duty mechanics. So mm-hmm. working on those big trucks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I took it was a first year pre-employment apprenticeship, mm-hmm. In Edmonton. And my dad really wanted me to get into something familiar to what he did, because he's an airframe tech. Mm-hmm. So he was in the military. He worked on aircraft. So he was hoping that I would take on something similar. Mm-hmm. So he's like, it's a great job, blah, blah, blah. So after high school, and once I was healthy enough, after my leg had broken, I was healthy enough to be able to get around on my own and do all that stuff. I did this, and I did the was it 4 months of school for the pre-apprenticeship, and then went on to start doing like a practicum. But it was like when you do a trade job, it's everything is active. You're actively learning. It's that's just being an apprentice. And I didn't know my left hand from the right. I'm like 18 years old, 19 years old. I don't know anything. And I remember sitting in the lunchroom with this trucking company that I was working at, and I didn't know anybody. I'm the new kid. To me, all the guys that worked there were giants. Now, I'm typically the smallest friend in a group of friends because I was always the small guy. So, because I was also the small guy, I got picked on a lot when I was younger. Nobody picks on me anymore. It's probably because they know I can hurt them because I was in martial arts for years. But I was in this room with men that looked like bears, super intimidating to a 19-year-old. And they started nicknaming me the surgeon because my hands were so clean. And all these other guys, they've got grease all over their face. They're covered in dirt and soot and junk and mud from working on trucks. And then, I don't know, somewhere along the way, kind of like your law firm experience, I wasn't there for very long. Just because I didn't know anything. I probably did not have any business being in that industry at the time, at that age. And I got yelled at. I got treated like shit. I got stuff thrown at me, and I was just like, and then I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know that I had the option of quitting, but then they found that option for me, and then I just got fired. And I was like, well, I don't want to be around these kind of people. So it made me stay away from it for a long time, and I had to grow into that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys in trades that are starting off young, that they know that they should understand that they have to grow into that because you're going to get yelled at. You're going to get yelled at no matter how you cut it. So then, yeah, I get my point being is that, like, so going through that evolution of the experiences and stuff like that, like, so you get to hear and trying to understand the misconceptions of trauma, and knowing early on with like your EMDR experiences and stuff like that. From there, how has counseling and trauma counseling changed since you kind of
so much,
like, because you got in, I would assume early enough to, like, I don't know, how new was EMDR back then?
I think it was relatively new. It was very helpful because it desensitizes the trauma responses. So when all of these sexual abuse and rape memories were coming up and having, those flashbacks, I was able to move through it. So I can talk about it now. Before, I couldn't even talk about it. I couldn't talk about it without having a visceral reaction and being able to break down and going into a bit of a trauma response. Going through EMDR allowed me to desensitize, kind of take the charge off the memories. So now I can even reference it. I'm not going to go into details. That's nobody's business. But I can reference it without feeling any form of emotional connection to it, but also having a deep level of empathy for myself. A lot of survivors have a deep level of shame that becomes very embedded in everything that they do. And I definitely held that. And it still creeps up. I'm a human being. It still creeps up for me in shame responses in different ways, but it took the charge of the shame away. And it made me realize that it's not my shame to own, it's theirs. And that I don't need to sit in that.
Yeah.
They should be sitting in that.
So is EMDR kind of like, like rewriting?
It's like rapid eye movement desensitization. So I would follow her finger, and it would, it's a brain stimulation. So it takes that charge off. So it's allowing your brain to work in two different ways.
What do they call that? That rewriting in your brain, where you think about an experience and it wasn't a good one, and then you try to rewrite in your brain
Yeah, it's kind of like cognitive behavioral therapy. So you're
Okay.
looking at cognitive restructuring, which is helpful. It's not necessarily helpful for trauma because that could activate more bypassing, right? So if you're looking at trauma recovery, you want to look at a bottom-up approach versus a top-down approach. A lot of our therapy and talk therapy is cognitive, right? So you're going, but when you look at the nervous system, out of 100% of your nervous system, 80% of your reactions, your thoughts and feelings and sensations are coming from your body first and directing the way that your brain is going to respond to it. So you'll feel the panic before your brain is like, I am feeling panic, right? And so cognitive talk therapy is only working with the 20% up here, not the 80% down there. So when we're working at trauma recovery, we want to work with the body first, while simultaneously giving them a label and understanding this is an emotion, this is how you feel, this is yada yada. Can we restructure this up here while addressing how it's happening in your body down here?
Is that why movement has been such an important part of? Okay.
Yeah. Movement is always a huge part of recovery. And that's where I feel like the yoga for me, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
Until now I'm like, oh yeah, that was exactly what I needed to integrate. I'm not big on like people talk, especially within the spiritual community, but like releasing stuff.
Yeah.
Like we got to release this and we got to let this go. Where is it going to go? This is still a memory that's part of you. It's still an experience that you had. How about instead of thinking that you need to remove something of yourself, we look at integrating that so it's not so loud. Emotions and feelings and sensations can be very loud. Thoughts can be very loud. And when they are loud, that means that they are looking for somewhere to go, not outside of you, but within you. How do we integrate it so those thoughts, feelings, and sensations are not as loud?
Yeah.
And having a deep respect for that connection into our body versus trying to disconnect. When we're in pain, we get mad at ourselves and it causes a disconnection.
Yeah.
The same thing with trauma. When we go into a trauma response and we're wanting to run or we're wanting to fight or we're wanting to pick at somebody or we're people pleasing to maintain safety, or, you look at any of those, what we're trying to do is hold it all in and we end up getting mad at ourselves. And so when we can shift that perspective to something really beautiful, this is just information that we can use to help ourselves heal. How do we use our trauma instead of hiding from our trauma?
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of like, we want to take the garbage out, but in this case, it's something that we can't remove from the house. So now we have to recycle it.
Yeah.
And
like a
repurpose it. Yeah. And so try to.
It's a weird analogy.
I know. That's a trade talk for you.
Yeah.
So I tried to simplify it for all of us knuckle draggers. Because going through all of those different things, and kind of like how I had said earlier that going through awful things makes you a better coach and therapist, because you can recognize some similarities of emotions that you've experienced and then pass on your experiences to other people and
sometimes,
to your clients.
Yes.
Yeah, not always.
Self-disclosure is definitely a time and a place for sure, especially when you're in a therapeutic setting, because you don't want people to feel like you're comparing, right?
Yeah.
But your experience does create empathy. And, we can have sympathy and we can have empathy. And sympathy is like, oh, I feel sorry for you. But do you really feel it?
Yeah.
Right? That sympathy is like, there's a distance to it. Empathy is the act of sympathy with compassion.
Yeah, you understand it more.
There's an action involved in it where you can literally put yourself in the other person's shoes. And so that is where I feel like my experience, I can relate to a lot of people where they've gone through addiction or they've gone through miscarriage. I've had 2 of them, or, both of my babies almost died their first year of life, gone through divorce, gone through head trauma and abuse and, assaults and all that kind of stuff. I can relate to them in a way where my empathy can allow them to feel seen and heard and understood without feeling shame. And that's the biggest thing that I want to be able to bring somebody, because no matter who I talked to, I felt shame. I never felt understood or seen. I felt dramatic. I felt, too much. I felt too intense or whatever, or I didn't feel anything at all. And so being able to bring that experience in the form of empathy into a setting can be a game changer for somebody who's ever experienced it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that could probably benefit from having somebody understand them.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the way that we fight, right? Just taking arguments, conflict resolution. We are 99% of the time, this is just a statistic I just made up in my head, but 99% of the time, we are fighting not the actual thing that's happening right now between me and you. We are fighting towards the millions of times we've felt unheard, dismissed, shamed, put down, rejected, or unloved in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And so it brings a thread of your past experiences into your present moment. And this is where the fights come up.
Yeah.
I've been through this before. This is what I have to do. Right? When some people will go into immediate people pleasing when they get into an argument. I'm sorry. How can I make this better?
Yeah.
And then that leads to resentment because they're abandoning themselves in the moment.
Yeah.
And others go into the fight response where they're just going to be cruel and mean, right? Because that's how they can protect themselves. It's all about protection.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at all of that and how we can understand ourselves, we can shift our language with each other and we can connect deeply, right? The key to healing trauma is connection, because trauma is aloneness. Right? There's so many scientific studies that it's the feeling of aloneness. Who is with you after a trauma? You go through something significantly distressful. Are you alone immediately after? If you are alone, then that trauma has a higher chance of embodying in your body and becoming a disorder or a chronic stress response within your system, right? So it's the connection of feeling seen and understood and held that allows us to not embody that trauma from our past and to be able to move through, right? And if we have that, then like having an empathetic other is really important. And this is where therapy can be really supportive.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you're gonna get that, but you might not necessarily get it from your partner.
Yeah, but what's happening after that empathetic other? What's happening after that empathy? And that's where the trauma integration can come in.
I remember, so my grandfather fought World War II, fought in France, and saw all of his friends die. And so when he came home after the war, he had no coping mechanisms other than drinking, because back then PTSD wasn't even a word yet.
No.
And so, he would drink and he would come home and he'd pass out. And my understanding is from my uncles and my mom that Grandpa was not a mean man. He was very quiet about what he had gone through. But my grandma was a spicy little French lady. And so she didn't really have a lot of empathy. And I mean, they grew up Depression era. And so this is my favorite story about my grandma and grandpa and just the way that they were with each other. So my grandpa came home drunk. Grandma's really upset. All the kids are in bed. And she was pissed off. She comes out and she sees he's in his lazy boy and he's just passed out drunk. And so she wanted to stick it to him. She goes in the kitchen, opens up a can of Campbell's mushroom soup and slops it all over the stove, and then just leaves the can on the counter, turns the stove on to 1 and goes back to bed. So my grandpa wakes up and my uncle was telling the story because he saw it all happen. He was like, creak the door open and was watching, and and so Grandpa wakes up to the smell of burning soup. And what the hell? He wakes up and goes in the kitchen and sees that there's soup like all over the counter, and he's like, did I try to make soup? And he cleaned up the entire kitchen. And so like those little moments, that's how my grandma, that was her version of empathy. That, I think, in terms of like what other people experience, that's the G-rated version of what you can possibly get with a certain type of partner. And then you go to the opposite end of the spectrum, and it could be physical fights. I'm sure you've heard of awful stories like that. I mean, I've heard of awful stories like that and stuff. And it's so like, how do you get people to? Because I mean, being in a trauma bonded relationship is really, really hard and really awful, and sometimes it's also abusive. And so, like, how do you help guide people through their trauma experiences while also potentially reliving a traumatic experience almost every time they leave.
That's a really good question. It's very hard to heal in the place that is making you sick. Very, very hard to heal. So if you're trying to leave an unsafe situation, it's to create a safety plan, right? And to know your non-negotiables. But if you're working through a therapeutic setting, it's about learning how to trust yourself and what feels right for you. And that trust can be built over a slow amount of time. I don't feel like when you're in a relationship that has a really unhealthy dynamic, sometimes if that's all we've ever known, and that unhealthy dynamic has created a really, this is a really heavy conversation, right? So, and it deserves to be treated with a lot of delicacy, because there is a lot of people who will shame, any partner that has gone through partner violence, domestic partner violence. Why did they stay? Why didn't they leave? They could have just left. It's not that easy when you're looking at the psychological ramifications of intimate partner violence, right? So we are looking at a completely different set of rules that need to be taken very slowly, right? Ultimately, we want to work on building that self-trust and rebuilding self-confidence to be able to walk away from something that doesn't serve our highest and best moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Do you see, so when it comes down to like abuse that we see in relationships, and there's been actually more men coming forward and speaking out about being in a physically abusive relationship, and they are not the instigator. I don't know if you see. Yeah, okay. So for guys out there that are like kind of in that, that like, how would you approach them to be, well, not you
exactly
approach
the same
them.
Way.
Yeah.
Partner violence is partner violence. Yeah. I would approach it the exact same way. For a safety plan, there's the psychological ramifications for being in an abusive relationship and why we continue to suffer that abuse or participate in that abuse in whatever way it is, whether we are on the receiving end or the perpetrator end. There's this dynamic that we go through in these relationships. It deserves to be handled with delicacy and care so that further harm is not caused. And there's a lot of people who will leave abusive relationships and then go right back because they want to believe the best in their partner. They fell in love with the best of their partner, right? We don't fall in love with people that are cruel. We fall in love with somebody, and then the cruelty can happen, right? People can change. Stressors can create unhealthy dynamics within relationships, and you can become verbally abusive, mentally, psychologically, physically, sexually, all of those kind of things. Men and or women, both as a victim of that within a relationship, deserves to be held in safety and moved where they can make the decisions for themselves. When you go through trauma, you have autonomy and agency taken from you. Decisions are made for you, right? You are told who you are, how you feel, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And when that has happened slowly over time, or enough times, you start to believe that you don't have a voice. Well, then what voice would be allow you to leave a relationship safely? So working with somebody in that type of situation is really about understanding how do we slowly drip agency back into their self-confidence and their self-esteem, where they can slowly make the decisions. And sometimes if it is unsafe, then creating a safety plan and getting them away from that environment is the number one priority.
Yeah. And I mean, just again, speaking from,
it should be done with a professional for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was fortunate enough to have a friend of mine who's just getting his certifications finished off for getting into the mental health counseling realm. And he's a tradesman, he's a plumber tradesman. And so what I see, and I mean, I'm just speaking in terms of just the trade side of things, but it's pretty much a pretty broad stroke across a variety of different industries. But there's a lot of guys out there that do get treated this way, that do get abused, that they don't know what to do. And I've encouraged many people, like, get out there and just pick a therapist. try and vet what you can, throw a dart if you have to.
Interview the therapist.
Yeah, like just get out there and try to find one that matches with you. Oh, what is something in terms of like men having resistance into going into getting counseling and therapy? What is something that you could say in terms of like encouraging them to be like, hey, it's okay to do this? Because there's a lot of guys that they just refuse to. Like, I don't need it.
You can't force somebody to do something they're not ready to do. Everybody's got their own journey. I would start small. I mean, start exploring, maybe reading a couple books, seeing if it speaks to you, listening to a couple podcasts. Drip it into your life first. You don't have to go head first into therapy. Therapy is not for everybody, right? But understanding what works for you. Maybe, I mean, I'm a self-learner. I absorb a lot of knowledge, and there's not a lot of people that I trust, and rightfully so. I've had a very traumatic life. And so me going to a therapist is difficult. I find it very difficult to find somebody that I will connect with. It's about connection. So if you are a man who's struggling with female relationships, really ask yourself if a female therapist is the best person for you, right? Are you going to be able to be open, maybe seeking out a male therapist, somebody, and interview that person? Really ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
Before I found my EMDR therapist, I interviewed 12.
Oh, wow.
I had 12 discovery calls, and I was like, I know your spiel. I have these questions. And I interviewed these people to make sure that I felt safe with that person in all aspects of myself. Because if you're coming to therapy and you're still hiding a part of yourself, then that means there's no trust in that relationship. And you're trying to create, the way that I see it is, you come into my office and we're going to practice safe relationship. It's relational. I want you to feel like you could tell me anything. I'm going to hold space for that. There's no judgment. And then you get to practice what that feels like. So then you can go out and be like, now I know what a safe relationship feels like. Now I can go and practice it out here.
Yeah.
And does this make sense to you? And being curious with, it is not my place to tell people what to do or offer advice ever, unless I'm a coach. And then I have direction. But as a therapist, I want to be curious with you. I want to activate that curiosity within yourself to be like, wait a minute, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if this is healthy for me. Now I'm starting to think of different avenues. And that's ultimately what therapy wants to bring you into, is to be more curious and more self-aware. And then you can go out and practice in the outside world. Bring it back in, practice something else, take it out, practice it out in your real life. Which
is kind of, well, it's what you did. It's you
practiced,
dabbled and practiced and got a chance to like, you're like, bring me the buffet. I want it all.
Exactly.
And then you started finding the things that worked for you, but then simultaneously you were also getting into the things that you didn't know about, which probably opened up more avenues of being like, this works for this person. This works for this person. It's no different than how we figure out that certain tools. Bucky, why do you got to do that right now? That like there's certain, like for me on the job, I can't use a hammer for absolutely every aspect of my job, because then I'm just going to look like an idiot. Just there's other tools to apply to specific things. Yeah,
it's not a one size fits all.
No, and I try to encourage some of the guys that I've worked with, like, hey, just it sounds like you got something shitty going on over here at home, whatever. Just talk to somebody.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, therapy is not your, you don't come in and then we heal you.
Yeah.
You come in and then we're curious of how you want to navigate your life.
Yeah.
Right? What's not working? Well, let's look at different ways that might work. That's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to find, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
There's a reason there's so many different therapeutic modalities and treatments that you can do. It's because not one size fits all. And there's a bunch of different spiritual modalities that you can do. And go for a sound healing, go for a yoga class, go for, a 30-minute HIIT class where you could be walking 30 minutes every single day. You could do meditation. There's so many different things, but when you find what works for you, that's how you can lead into post-traumatic growth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because a lot of guys, if they don't go to therapy, they will use other avenues, and not necessarily addictive ones.
Yeah.
Or I should say, like, terrible addictive ones, because anybody can turn almost anything into an addiction, as long as it's kind of like they feel like it's helping them. I mean, some people will turn yoga into an addiction, but then simultaneously they'll turn driving fast into an addiction. It can be anything. But a lot of guys use, just because we tend to be a little bit more of the physical animal out there, is that we use things like the gym, or running or whatever. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but movement will help, but not necessarily with the emotion, maybe a little bit. But I that's why I suggest guys, like, hey, for the most part, you should be talking it out. You should be trying to get it out there a little bit.
Like a combination. Like, jiu-jitsu is amazing because you're teaching control and you're still able to be very, very physical.
Yeah.
Right. Qigong is something that you can do as a very slow meditative practice where you're not just sitting there in meditation, you're working with the energy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hi.
This is now, okay, so this is the first time on my podcast that I've had a third guest. So he's also rarely like this with strangers, because we had a whole bunch of people over for Christmas breakfast.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole bunch of totally new people.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's dad, Bucky loves him. But mom doesn't like animals. So he tends to, cats no.
I love cats. I'm very allergic to them.
But come on in, Bucky.
But cats will always come to me.
Of course.
Always. If I could have them, I would.
Yeah. He's 2 years old. He's 16 pounds.
He's beautiful.
And he's just a big idiot. It's second largest domestic cat, next to a Maine Coon.
Yeah, he's beautiful.
Yeah. He tries to tell everybody that he's cool, but yeah. Yeah, like, so, with a lot of guys and stuff. So some of the stuff that you use in terms of your the skills that you apply to your counseling, a lot of them will tend to be the same. It doesn't matter who comes in, because, like you said, a bad relationship is a bad relationship, and it doesn't matter really who's on either side of it. There's certain things that you have to do or should do to be able to grow or move on beyond that. That can be kind of
generally.
But there's a big brush.
Men and women are very, very different.
Yeah, so that
needs to be honored.
Yeah, and I was going to say, in terms of, there's certain aspects where, like, how do you cut bread? It's going to be with the same type of knife. Use a bread knife, not a freaking butter knife. But then
it's not for me.
You're going to break it up.
Yeah, like it's a man comes in to a session and needs some therapy. I want to know what helps him feel like a healthy masculine man, right? Like, our definition of masculinity is very different personally. And so what one woman might feel is how she can femininely nurture herself can be very different from the next woman. And same thing with the man. What makes you feel strong and powerful and confident but also very soft and understanding and self-aware? Like, where is that balance for you, where it's not bordering into quote unquote toxicity, where you're feeling out of control? Or, anger is a really, really healthy emotion to express. And a lot of men get shamed for their level of anger. How are we healthily expressing our anger? Right? I've said with my partner, he's, 6'1", I'm 5'3". If you want to yell at me, totally okay with that. Go across the room. Go stand like 10 feet away, and then you can yell at me and I feel I'm okay. But if you're standing over top of me, well, now there's a power dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. And within relationships, I feel like we really do need to look at the power dynamic. Are we in a relationship where we love our roles? Is it a a pink role and a blue role? A pink job, a blue job.
Yep.
There's some relationships that love that.
Yeah.
And there's some that are like, no. I will mow the lawn. You also mow the lawn. I will take out the garbage. You also take.
Yeah.
There's no differentiation between. It's just a shared partnership.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at a man coming in wanting to understand relation, well, where is their structuring in their body too? How what helps them, what type of environment did they grow up in, because all of that plays a part in it, right? But if they're looking at trying to figure out who they are and struggling with XYZ, well, that's not for me to tell you how you should or shouldn't behave. That's not my role at all. It's to be curious with what is working for you and what's no longer working for you. And then moving slowly from there.
Yeah. And being okay to, like, especially with a partner, is that, that's the key word. And I think a lot of people forget is that it's a partnership. It's not like, you got one person telling you what to do and then you just go and do it. A lot of guys will say, oh, well, I got my Saturday morning honey-do list. Funny enough that most of the guys out there don't mind actually having that honey-do list. So, but then simultaneously, we got to understand that everybody in a relationship can make the rules, and just trying to talk about them, understand, okay, garbage is a blue job, or it's gross, or it's a bit of a walk to the alley. And we don't live in the greatest neighborhood. So that's my job. But like understanding that there's going to be some inequality somewhere along there, and building trust and structure. A lot of guys tend to thrive on that just because we're so linear in our brains.
Well, I think it's also a matter of looking at who's over-functioning and who's under-functioning in the relationship. And I think women generally over-function and men generally under-function in regards to the household management or emotional management. So when we're looking at healthy dynamics within ourselves, like I have really worked very hard in the last few years to stop over-functioning, doing for others what they can and should be doing for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And my partner is equally an overfunctioner. So we have been trying to navigate this dynamic of like, okay, wait a minute, there is no segregation in our roles. It's who's carrying the weight and how do we even each other out when we need it. Sometimes I got to check right out. I'm too overstimulated, too overwhelmed, and he'll be able to come in and pick up for me. That's a partnership, right? But if we're looking at why do I keep coming up these dynamics, are we overfunctioning? Are we underfunctioning? What does that mean? How can we help ourselves and really lean into that level of self-empowerment?
Yeah. And I was going to mention, because you talked a lot about like a lot of your earlier lived traumas and experiences, and then how it just kind of manifested itself physically and outwardly, and going through all those crappy experiences with the medical system and going through traditional approaches and all that. And something that a lot of guys do is that they'll internalize. And it's good that your youngest is starting to see a little bit more of a shift in that direction of like maybe not necessarily internalizing, and that talk about it or whatever. But with a lot of guys, there's still quite a few younger people, younger guys nowadays too, but they're still taught to suppress. And obviously you going through what suppression can do, and then how it'll show up in your life. And it's not going to be the same for everybody, but it's going to have a similar detriment to your life. So like, have you seen other manifestations of what suppression does to the body?
Cardiovascular disease, lymphatic dysfunction, endocrine disrupting. I mean, a lot of men who go through chronic stress will have lower testosterone, right? Higher levels of cortisol and lower levels of testosterone. So managing our hormones is really, really important. When you have chronic suppression or abuse, you're more likely, now don't quote me on this, it's just what I see, more likely to have histamine intolerance, which can lead to mast cell activation, which is like a complete inflammatory response within the body. There is a lot of scientific studies done out there in scientific journals that have pinpointed specific physical disease due to emotional dis-ease. So if we live by the rule, emotional dis-ease creates physical disease, then we can help manage. If I look at a headache, for example, well, why did I get a headache? Right? It's not just it's not just a headache. It's never just a headache. There's been multiple emotional components that lead into a headache. So did I not eat? Okay, well, why wasn't I eating? What was I stressed about? There's something emotional there. There's something demanding. Am I tense? Why am I tense? There's something emotional there. There's something demanding. Did I overwork? Why am I overextending myself? There's something emotionally that I'm actually not paying attention to, and I'm not in creating that rest that my body needs. There's always an emotional component that will lead to a headache, for example. It's your emotions will convert into physical symptoms, right? When we look at fibromyalgia, neuralgia, we look at any form of neurological dysfunction, we're also looking at a dysfunctional nervous system. Well, that nervous system is what helps you process stress and leads you into your coping skills. So if your nervous system, if your baseline is up here all of the time, people who've been through PTSD or complex trauma or shock might be way more hypervigilant, jumpy, right? That type of reaction all of the time where something is essentially inconsequential. Well, that's telling you that they're in a fight or flight, a chronic fight or flight mode. And we hear all of these stuff around the world about, or social media, about being regulated. And it's kind of a irritant of mine. Being regulated is not being like this all of the time.
No.
It is not. Being regulated is being able to actually move through the roller coaster of your emotions and not get stuck in one particular way. We should feel a range of emotions throughout the day: irritation, joy, happiness, frustration, passion, curiosity, creativity. Like, we can feel all of these emotions, but if we get stuck in something, well, then we're stuck in a nervous system response. And that is where we can maybe work with our nervous system, move our body to move that emotion through, right? So yes, there is a lot of suppression that can cause, because think of it this way. The average human body has about 50 trillion cells, right? You take one of those cells and you put it under a microscope, you're going to see anywhere from like 5 million to 2 trillion molecules. So one of those molecules within the 2 trillion, within your 50 trillion cells, okay, the math is astronomical, lies the mitochondria. Your mitochondrial health determines your physical health. And that mitochondria is energy, right? And that holds your emotional energy like lint. So if we're filled with lint, we're going to be very stiff and sore. Like, a lot of men have tight hips, tight, strict psoas muscles. I personally hate the pigeon pose in yoga. I get pissed off every single time. And it's because I have a lot of anger sitting in my hips. That is where, and so I'll sit there and then I'll start to get frustrated and angry that I can't stretch out my hips. And so men who focus on relaxing their hips end up having a large release, sometimes an integration of anger. And they can actually feel a lot more flow within their body. And there's a lot of studies being done on consciousness and on the flow state. And that's about getting into moving and integrating your nervous system in a way where you
quantum
feel
energy
healthy.
and
The whole thing.
It's becoming a bigger and more popular topic. I mean, the fact that I can't remember what the name of it was, but somebody went and found, it was like a quantum cell or something like that. And I'm probably butchering this entire idea about what it was, but it was something that, like, the Shaolin monks have known about for thousands of years, is that this one particular cell is actually a yin yang. And that this has been known for thousands of years, but this whole time it's just, now science is catching up to what was a thought or an assumption back then. And now we're starting to see all these different overlapping network of things that kind of converge onto this one human, and how they can address all these problems with dealing with, whether they're going to use only organic foods and they're going to exercise and stuff like that, or they're going to go to yoga and be a vegan, or they're going to do peptides and, become a bodybuilder, whatever those things are. But somewhere along the way, there'll be a healing aspect there. And unfortunately, a lot of tradespeople, but a lot of men in general tend to use other stimuluses to help them. It tends to be drugs and alcohol. So We see that way too much.
Yeah.
Way too much.
It's easy to reach for.
Yeah, it is the fast food of our lives.
Yeah.
You can literally drive through quick and convenient, but in the world of like products out there, is you get a choice of three things. It can be a good price, it can be made fast, or it can be made cheap, and you only get to pick two. And so most time people look for fast and cheap, unfortunately. So with your experiences after you got taken off all of those different medications, after the medical system had failed you for so long and potentially put you in a state of almost OD, because I would imagine it's probably borderline pretty close to that at times.
It was a high level of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. And it would be really hard to really measure that, it being so long ago, but the only one who would really know what exactly is going on is you, but then you're being numbed the whole time. And when you came out of that, and then this veil had been lifted and you've been numbed for so long and experienced a state of not knowing and feeling all this other stuff, and then all of a sudden that veil is lifted and you start seeing colors for the first time and hearing sounds, and going into that state of what a lot of people... Something that I've learned about this is that some things are true whether you believe them or not. So for all those people out there that don't understand what it means to be a medium, or what it means to be a healer of that type, and I can see colors, I can see auras. I mean, obviously it's played very well into your counseling and your coaching and your therapies. But when you experienced that for the first time, was there anything there that you could like develop, and like, was there somebody else that you could learn from?
Yeah, I was working with my mentor too.
So because your mentor probably had some similar skills in that way.
Oh yeah, all the skills.
Yeah.
I did training and did almost a year-long program in Middle Earth, like shamanic practitioner work, and trying to understand the psychotherapy of spirituality in a way that wasn't really explainable back then. But I recognized that the spiritual community and the unhealthy religious community were one and the same, just in a different context. You can find suppression and oppression and confinement in any community that you go to, right? But for me, it was about understanding myself in a way where I could keep an open mind and believe the best about myself. Because I had suppressed so much of my reality through trauma, I developed a different sense. So we have our five senses. My other sense is reading energy. And I honed in on it on a way where I practiced every single day, meditated every single day, and really wanted to understand myself and understand the world at large, wanted to understand all of the religions and all of this spiritual fascinations that were unexplainable to me. I was just hungry to learn. And so that's where I started to just try to embody it in a way. But then I started seeing harm. I started witnessing harm being in all of these communities, which is, why I'm working with those communities now for harm prevention. But it was really beautiful experience where I could come into myself, right? Instead of being separate from myself, I was coming into myself. And then when my second son was born and he suffered a brain injury from his 2-month vaccinations, he started, believe it or not, started having seizures immediately following his vaccinations. And we spent the first 2 years in and out of Children's Hospital. That's what kickstarted my research into trauma and into the developing brain and developmental trauma, because I wanted to know how to help my son and all of the injuries that he was going through and the developmental challenges that we were going and that we have been navigating throughout his life because of a pharmaceutical injury. So this was very like full circle for me. Yeah. And it was within that time that I ended up leaving my marriage and becoming a single mom and starting my business and doing energetic healing to try and support my family.
Yeah. Congratulations on the 10-year mark, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. 10 years.
That's a hell of a milestone to hit, is to go through all that and then start your own business and to be where you're at now, where you're not just handling and taking care of people one-on-one, but you're also coaching other coaches to become better at their job and to not just understand the service that they provide, but then also impacting them individually as well. And then sending them off into the world and then being a part of and kind of helping them. Like that's, the Star Wars quote is, "When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." So Darth Vader said to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I can't ignore stuff like that. Like, you know, those are just moments that, you know, and you, that's literally what happened with you. Now you're at that state where you're teaching others, and that's pretty cool.
Well, it was kind of like climbing into trauma education and understanding the developing brain was so important to me. It helped me understand myself in a way that mental health, all of the rooms that I've been in, didn't explain to me. They had all of this knowledge and I saw them as this voice of authority, but they didn't explain me to me in a psychoeducational way where I actually understood. So it wasn't until I started diving into my son's development that I was like, oh, that's why that happened. And that's this. So then I started seeing harm in the workshops I would attend. And I'm like, oh, that could have activated this or that could have. And I was like, there's no education for these practitioners that are coming in, especially the spiritual practitioners. They recognize they have this natural affinity to be a healer or to be a psychic or to be a tarot reader or, you know, a coach. They have this natural affinity to help people and they go into these coaching programs, but they're not taught trauma-informed education for harm prevention. And you're working with, no matter what you're doing, if you're in the service industry, you are working with somebody's mental health. And so that's where this, I founded the Mind Your Heart Academy to provide that psychoeducation for individuals, as well as the practitioners, the professionals, the helpers in the world. Because for years before I, you know, became a counselor, I felt like I was a bridge between counseling and coaching. I had more trauma education than the average and self-taught, and well as, you know, workshops and courses that I would take, but no certification program. I would just take all of these pieces and then be like, why isn't this being shared within these coaching programs? Why isn't crisis management or conflict management being shared in these programs? And, you know, what I found a lot within these helpers is they like to tell people who they are instead of asking them. And that little tweak is taking somebody's agency away. You know, well, I knew you'd feel that way in a personal argument. Well, how do you know? You didn't ask me.
Yeah.
Right? You're assuming. Now you're taking the agency of my own emotion away from me. Something that small can actually have a huge impact on a relationship. And when we look at that, like, you know, I would go to a healer and get some Reiki, and they would be like, oh, you're going through this and you're feeling this. Well, thank you for thinking that you know me better than I know myself, because you're reading the energy, and that's wonderful. And also, you're not asking if I agree.
Yeah.
You're telling me, and that can cause harm, because somebody who's been deeply traumatized, do not tell me what to do.
Yep.
You can ask me.
Yeah.
Right? You can be curious with me. If you're curious, then there will be a mutual respect. So this psychoeducation that it created within the Mind Your Heart Academy is to teach those professionals and those helpers how to be harm preventative, right? To amplify their career and to retain client retention within their field. And then also with the individual who doesn't like therapy, but also wants to learn this stuff in a way where they can learn about their trauma responses and their stress responses generally, but then also apply it to themselves and start to slowly work through it. So that's what I'm doing on that aspect in regards to coaching and the teaching and the program directing with the curriculum. And then the stuff that I love to do is just working one-on-one with my clients.
Yeah.
And taking them, watching them explore and expand and have those aha moments. Aha moment in an office is like amazing.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Exactly.
Let's talk about aliens. Been chomping at the bit. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to find a nice way to be like, oh, yeah, and then the aliens. Like, fuck it. Just,
energy. It's the same.
It's so cool.
It's energy.
It's there's a new documentary coming out, and there's plenty of documentaries out there that anybody could easily digest. But this one had an Air Force. I think he was an Air Force. I think he was a pilot. He was on Rogan. Rogan was asking him a lot of questions, and then he would politely say, I can't talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And funny enough, that sometimes when somebody says, I can't talk about that, it means that there is something to be spoken about that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's on this documentary. And anyway, what got you into aliens, aside from the energy aspect? Because there's a far greater curiosity to that than just being like, okay, there's a bunch of little gray men running around.
It was actually spiritual development. Within the spiritual community, we talked about like, what type of realm do you work in? Do you work in the earth realm or the angel realm or, galactic? And so that was a normal way of communicating. And so when you would meditate, you would go up and you would meet, archangels or your spirit guides or, or little green men. It's however your mind interprets the information that's coming through. And it was just kind of standard, the environment that I was living in. And then also seeing certain things in my mind's eye where I was like, is that? I don't know. And then, I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan myself. But I like all conversations that allow you to be curious.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's against mainstream, it's probably something that I want to learn more about because I'm very well versed in mainstream. I'm not well versed in these subjects. So when we climb into, aliens, and if they're here and in the ocean, or if, they've been surrounding us this entire time, or there's, people walking around that are aliens that we just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the idea that I don't know, which means that anything is possible. And if we even look at the story of the Bible and the story or the book of Enoch or any of those types of things, we're looking at giants and dragons and dinosaurs. And if you can sit there and have an open mind and be curious, then anything is possible. Then doesn't that make life so much more exciting?
It really does.
Like, is this not like the most exciting time to be alive in the history of mankind right now?
There's so many people that don't believe that, and they don't. I just think that they don't understand where we're at in terms of just because we're always on the precipice. We always feel like we're on this precipice of doom, but simultaneously, we're also on the precipice of this bananas discovery, and it can go either way. Well,
there's been alien disclosure in this last year, and it was like
more than any time. More than any time.
I know.
So
it's very fascinating. I am excited for the day that I transition to the other side and all of the secrets will be revealed.
And you're like,
and I'm like, oh, I was right about that.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
And then have some stuff going that was fun to imagine that.
Yeah.
Like if there's remote viewers out there, I want to learn how to remote view and go back to the day of Jesus. I want to remote view and go back to Atlantis.
Yeah. Rogan said he wants to go to Egypt. He wants to see, like, how did this all unfold?
Exactly.
How did y'all move these massive stones? Because, there's that's the thing. I remember somebody saying to me once a long time ago when I had, like some suicidal ideation and stuff like that. And I think my aunt said that there's far too much wonder and mystery in this world to not wonder that there's something more important than what we're necessarily experiencing. Mm-hmm. And fair enough. And not to minimize, my personal experience at the time, but to be like, okay, dude, there's more going on. And if you just kind of ask a couple of questions and just go out into left field and just take a look, maybe it'll pull you out of whatever stuff you're going on.
Yes.
Not to say that that's the answer, but it can be a direction.
But that will also go against somebody's identity. So if you challenge their beliefs, you challenge who they are. And that's why I think there's a lot of people who don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
You know, I have a really close friend. She believes this is it. When we die, we're just dead.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. Although she also believes in vibes. So I don't know. There's a bit of cognitive dissonance there. But if I'm going to sit down and challenge her, then I'm challenging her identity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you were to say to somebody, Jesus doesn't exist, and they are a devout Catholic or a devout Christian, well, you're challenging everything that makes them who they are. And I think that's where we find a lot of resistance with people, not being able to have an open mind, because that would mean that everything that they have known their entire life could be wrong. That is a huge identity crisis, and nobody wants an identity crisis.
I think that's why we see so many people at odds with each other on so many different topics. It's like, you know, everybody wants to argue their position. They entrench themselves so much that because they got the blinders on or whatever, and they just want to, this is my place. This is my little realm of operation, and I'm good here. So I don't want to go outside anymore.
I think we've confused the term critical thought.
Yeah.
Right? We take it literally.
Yeah.
Where I have to be critical of your thoughts and I have to be critical of your decisions, instead of I am going to be critical towards my own thoughts and decisions to see different perspectives. And if we can see a different perspective, well, we have the glory of the entire world at our fingertips. When we can put ourselves in another person's position, and we saw the division and the hatred that is going on in this world is so extreme. And we saw it firsthand in COVID, and neighbors turning against each other and families. I mean, I'm still experiencing that with like that. There's been excommunication with certain friendships and family because of polarizing beliefs. I have compassion and understanding and empathy. And also there's a part of me that's like,
you made your bed.
Well, not, yes. And we're not on the same, we don't really, if you're going to present hatred towards me, then that is just me saying, thank you, but no, thank you.
Yep.
Right? Yep. Or I'm not going to present hatred towards you. I understand why you did X, Y, Z, or why, but that doesn't mean that I need to necessarily have it in my everyday life.
Yeah. I don't need to participate in it.
And I don't need to also climb into the energy of hatred.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that a lot of people are forgetting, is that we can have opinions and it can be differing, and we can still be okay with each other. There's so much in my family that we do not agree on in terms of a lot of different topics, but simultaneously I'm just like, so what time's dinner tomorrow?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be at odds.
Yeah. We're just going to agree to disagree.
I mentioned something about Trump to my mom on Christmas Day at Christmas dinner, and her face just turned, and I was like, can we agree that he does some wacky stuff? Yes. Okay. Was that thing that he posted about on Christmas Day pretty out there? Yes. Let's leave it at that. It's okay. It's okay. But, you know, there's obviously a lot going on in this world, and I think we just gotta filter out what works for us and what doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, if you even take the vaccination versus anti-vaccination, my son almost died due to his vaccinations. He is a statistic that is put on those box labels. He is that statistic. Therefore, we will not vaccinate, did not vaccinate, because he could die. But also, I did a ton of different research, and, well, we can try and be healthy this way instead. Whereas a friend of mine is quadruple vaxxed through COVID and totally vaxxed her. And we are fundamentally very on opposing sides. But we love each other so deeply that we have agreed that that is not a conversation that we can safely have within our friendship. And we just have to agree to disagree and respect each other's decision and not get into a debate about it.
And it's okay. It's okay to have a good boundary. It's okay to have a good, everybody's talking about boundaries nowadays, and it's okay to have those. These are the rules to the game, and it's okay to have them.
And if we could live our life that way, where it's okay to disagree, I am not going to shit on you for having your thoughts and opinions. Please don't shit on me, and then we'll carry on. We'll just avoid the subject.
Yeah.
That's okay. We don't need to be on the same page of everything. That would be very boring.
Wouldn't it?
Be very boring.
Wouldn't it? Yeah, it would be very boring. I had so many, a lot of these questions that I had written down, you kind of answered. I didn't.
Wonderful.
I didn't even actually have to be like, okay. but like at the same time, I feel like I've always got more questions that are rolling around in my head. But I think in terms of like what we've talked about so far, and I feel like we could probably keep going, not just like with the questions that I have, because I have so many more about your experiences, because you've lived a very adventurous life without having to leave the country in terms of like majority of the experiences that you've had. Your adventures have been, yeah, pretty broad, pretty diverse, pretty cool, pretty crazy. And yeah, it's kind of cool. It's cool to be able to sit down with somebody that's gone through so much shit and come out on the other side like a beacon of hope for so many others out there that need it, and then don't realize that they need it, and that there's good people out there, and they're not hard to find. So yeah, I think being able to bump into you that one day, and then following you for I don't know for how long, probably a couple of years now, and just seeing just the little bits of all the things that you talked about for years, and that your momentum has not even come close to slowing down, that it's ramping up more and more. And you know, like it's kind of cool to be able to, I would imagine from your perspective potentially, is that it's kind of cool to step back and be like, I did a bunch of shit with my life so far and I'm not done.
Yeah. Well, I think the one turning point for me, I was in this emotional regulation weekend with this trauma-informed coach, Maston Kipp. And I got picked to speak in front of all of these people and ask my question. And I asked it about dissociation. And so he asked me a little bit about myself. And so I told him, and he goes, you know, statistically, you should be dead, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, actually, I've heard that before. Like statistically, I should be a drug addict on the streets, prostituting myself, or struggling on welfare, or there's choices that I made that, and I do feel like spiritually, divinely, I've been guided and I've learned how to listen to my gut and make the best decisions for myself with the information that I have. But if I just keep coming back to choosing myself, and that may sound selfish to some people, but I think it's necessary.
But it's worked.
Claiming agency and going, don't tell me what to do. And that it's my mistake to make. And I will clean up my own messes. And I'm going to do for myself what I should have done and what I was never taught to do. Then, you know, maybe it'll work. And it's worked so far. I don't know how I got here.
It's okay.
I'm like the little engine that could. I just keep plugging along, and eventually I'll get to wherever I'm going. I have no idea. It changes constantly.
Good. It should change.
My goal is just to be a really good mom and parent my children and my stepchildren, and be support so they never have to experience a level of adversity that I did.
And they will experience some, but not to the same degree, not even close to the
when
same
they
degree.
do, because they'll
prepared.
have support, which I don't feel like I really had a lot of growing up. I had to figure shit out on my own a lot of the time. And so I have a very figure it out type of attitude, which I try to help my children with, like try and figure it out on your own. And when you can't, you can come to me always 100% of the time, come to me, and then I will help you figure it out. But I want you to try first. And that's the biggest thing that I was never gifted. So I do feel like I've broken some, generational trauma patterns here for sure.
Good.
And then I can only imagine how lucky my grandchildren are going to be.
That in of itself is probably a pretty serious milestone that so many people take for granted. I'm not saying that you take it for granted, but I think that's a pretty amazing milestone, is to overcome something generationally that has been a haunt.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
I hope my boys find women who are equally as emotionally mature as them, maybe a little bit more.
Probably more.
Yeah. That I can have a loving relationship with, that they see the type of relationship that they are worthy of, and the women that they choose and choose them are equally the same. And same with my stepdaughters, that they'll grow up to understand their worth and take nothing less. Because when we find our match, then we are okay.
Yeah. I wish the same things for my two daughters.
And if they never have kids, I'm okay with that too. Live your life, kids. Live.
Yeah. There's plenty of other people out there having babies. It's okay that you don't.
My partner would totally disagree. He is the baby whisperer beyond belief. He's like, oh, grandbabies. I was like, in 10 more years. Well,
yeah.
10 more years.
Cool your jets, buddy.
10 more years. But meanwhile, I'm like, just live your life.
Yeah.
Have some adventures. Be free.
Yes, I agree. We need a little bit more adventure in our lives. So, normally, what I do at the end of every episode so far is, this has been a question that has been, it's a tough one, and it's meant to be tough. I came up with it like when I was coming up with this entire idea, because this entire idea of doing a podcast about why men matter stemmed from the level of just the adverse conversation behind male toxicity. I was like, well, male toxicity to a certain extent is justified, because there's a lot of women out there who have spoken out about having just really bad relationships, and please
vice versa,
talk about them. And it goes the other way as well, is that there's men who have experienced some pretty awful relationships. The difference being is that women tend to talk about it more because they have circles of other women, and they'll all talk, and then it just becomes an outward conversation. Guys usually don't have that kind of structure. That's not true. We do. We don't talk like that. We'll have the Foot Locker talk, or the locker room talk. We will have the sports talk. We will have the sit at the bar and have a beer talk, but it's rarely about, how are things with the wife? How are things in dating? Blah, blah, blah. Guys don't really talk like that. I talk like that with some of my buddies, but, we're just, I don't want to say that we're different. It's just, those are the things that we like talking about because it's relevant. But it also helps us bounce ideas off of each other, Q&A and all that. But this question is one of those things where it makes you think a lot more about, I'm just overindulging. I'm mansplaining this fucking question. I'm an idiot. So in your opinion, why do men matter?
It's such a large question. I think that can I answer why men matter to me?
Absolutely. I would have it no other way.
Like, to me personally, I feel like men provide the balance that I don't have in my life. When I think about growing up, my father was not around. I didn't have a healthy relationship with him. So I sought that male influence in promiscuity and all this kind of stuff, because I just wanted to understand how to feel protected. And I feel like men are inherently deeply protective of their environment, of themselves, of the people in their life. It's when that protection goes sideways that it becomes a power dynamic. But I think for me as a woman, to be able to crawl under my partner's arm and feel safe allows me to feel feminine. So the more empowered you are as a male allows me to feel more empowered as a female. And so as a single mom raising boys, how could I promote that healthy masculinity within them? But I had to showcase healthy femininity first, right? And so the man for me balances everything out in my life. It's the dark and the light. It's the up and the down. It's the in, it's the out. It's the everything that creates contraction and expansion is the male-female dynamic. And then we have, we can lean into non-binary and transgender and all of that type of stuff. But when we're looking at specifically a man, for me, it's the opposite of what I need, or the opposite that creates what I need. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
In an abstract way, because it's the answer can be as complicated as the question.
Yeah. I mean, I need male friendships, right? I need that perspective in my life. And to be able to cultivate male friendships following my marriage ending was such a profound moment for me. that didn't involve sexuality. It just involved a male perspective that I could lean into protectively. It allowed me to get closer to my father too. And then being able to see my partner for who he is as a man and respect that and honor that, I also create that invitation for him to honor the feminine within me. And when it's imbalanced is when we get all messy, right?
No,
respecting the differences is what creates the connection.
It's a good answer.
Thanks.
Yeah. I stumped one guy. He's like, I'm going to be thinking about this tonight while I'm going to bed. Because I mean, he gave his answer, but at the same time, it's like, it's just complicated.
Yeah. It kind of goes along with that when people are like, what makes a woman? Well, what makes you you?
Yeah.
And what do you bring to the table? And what do you not bring to the table? And what is in your innermost secrets and your desires and your passion and everything? But I think our masculinity and femininity can really be the most beautiful gift that we can provide in somebody else's life.
That's why there's the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
And then in each of the either sides, there is a drop of the other. You can't have one without the other.
No.
So yeah. Well, thank you for coming to virtually a stranger's home and talking a lot about these things. I mean, a lot of these things being, some of these things are not easy to talk to, but you talk about it with a level of grace and comfort that it's like it's almost like you're telling somebody else's story, and that it's an example of the kindness that we should show ourselves, because you've shown that to yourself, is that you've been gentle with yourself, and at times maybe not, but
well, definitely I'm the biggest asshole to myself. I think we naturally are. I think.
We're our own worst critics. But at the same time, you've just kind of told your story a little bit. There's more. I know there's more. There's always way more. But yeah, I appreciate you coming and talking about this stuff today, and then showing that it's okay for guys out there to be able to talk about their trauma, and to be able to get out there and just do the work, and having a little bit of indulgence on talking about aliens, because that's always fun. That's always fun. So
well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh, till next time.
Yes.